Hey, Zane Griggs here. So the fear of dietary cholesterol and saturated fat is obviously still strong. It's coming out from certain organizations, some doctors who haven't kept up with the science. And of course it's all in our minds because we've been hearing about it since the 60s, right? The whole diet heart hypothesis where they made some correlation by looking at 7 countries who ate a certain way and found that there was an incidence of heart disease there. Kind of ignoring many other countries who had similar diets, didn't have those same results, or had different diets with different results. You know, they just kind of found 7 that lined up and let's run with that, but no studies, right? So they come up with this diet heart hypothesis about saturated fat cholesterol, that Ansel Keys guy, you know. But really the science does not back it up, okay? For instance, the Freemium heart study, okay, which is one of the longest running heart studies. It's in Framingham, Massachusetts. Been running since I think the late 60s, early 70s. It's still going. When they kind of tried to pull some evidence from that initially, but when they looked at the evidence again in the early 80s, as early as the early 80s, they found that lowering your total cholesterol through diet, okay, lowering your dietary cholesterol and lowering your total cholesterol through diet gave no benefit to your mortality from heart disease. Okay, total mortality, no difference, okay, in the end result over the course of these decades, okay? No benefit to lowering total cholesterol through diet. And the same with, the saturated fat, okay? And yet they're pushing these PUFAs, right? These polyunsaturated fats like soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, which is hydrogenated cottonseed oil is Crisco, right? We know that's bad for us. Corn oil, they're pushing all these PUFAs on us, which really are showing to be more of a cause of disease and inflammation in our bodies and even cancer, and much more harmful than saturated fat or cholesterol ever could have been. And there's science to back that up. So, for instance, there was a 8-year study with it's a double-blind study, not just a correlation of these countries or seeing something, oh, this might correlate to this. Actual double-blind study, you don't get better than that, with the LA Veterans Hospital Administration. They had 2 different cafeterias. They didn't know what they were eating, but they had a card that showed this is what you get fed. They had 2 different cafeterias, okay? One that was more saturated fat, typical American diet, saturated fat, the other with polyunsaturated fats, right? After 7 years, no difference in the benefits towards heart disease, okay, diabetes, all that. Even though the saturated fat group was shown in the metadata later, they went back and saw the saturated fat group actually had more medium to heavy smokers in it than the polyunsaturated group. What a coincidence. They put more heavy smokers in the saturated, supposedly the control group had more heavy smokers. Sounds like they're trying to skew something to me. However, what did happen after 7 years, the incidence of cancer actually really became very obvious in the polyunsaturated fat, in the group given the polyunsaturated fats rather than the saturated fats and the cholesterol. So the PUFAs seem to be causing inflammation and creating this higher cancer risk. They saw more of it in the 3 or 4 year mark, but by the 7 years, it seemed to really be kicking in an obvious difference risk for cancer eating more polyunsaturated fats, like I mentioned earlier, the PUFAs. And you think, well, why would that happen? Well, polyunsaturated, okay, is unstable. Unsaturated is unstable. Monounsaturated is olive oil, avocado. Mono is they have 1, right? 1 open bond. Poly means they have more than 1 open bond. Usually it's 2 open bonds. And those open bonds molecularly attract oxygen molecule. Attract oxygen molecule, you get oxidized fat. It oxidizes it. Oxidation is a very sciencey word for rust. Okay, it's breakdown of the molecular structure. Okay, so you're rusting the fat, and it's shown to be the oxidized cholesterol and the oxidized fat that actually causes the inflammation and the damage to our heart and arteries. Not normal, okay, fat, saturated fat cholesterol, but the oxidized, the rusted kind. Okay, we get that by heating primarily. It will happen naturally in polyunsaturated fats. It will oxidize anyway, just sitting in your closet, in your pantry, but it will oxidize much faster by heating, by cooking with it. So we're supposed to cook with it. Well, this is why I always cook with coconut oil, right? And saturated fat, butter, okay? Maybe a little bacon fat I keep in the fridge. Add some flavor, But the saturated fats, they don't oxidize under heats. Okay? They're much more resistant to heat because their bonds are closed. The polyunsaturated fats have open bonds, you get more oxidation, that causes the inflammation, that's where we get the cancer risk, okay? So, again, the science is not holding true to this saturated fat and cholesterol scare. In fact, there's been some recent studies in the mid-2000s with low-carb diets and low-carb, high-fat diets, some of them at the University of Indiana, where not only was there a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, but they saw diabetics who, under doctor supervision, with doctor's permission, able to come off of their diabetes medication, their insulin, because they had blood sugar control from their low-carb, higher-fat diet. So, it's coming in. The evidence is coming in, and so I think that's probably why the USDA lifted its limits in the dietary guidelines for Americans 2015. They used to have a 300 milligram per day limit on your dietary cholesterol, right? No more than 300 milligrams per day. That limit's gone. There's no longer a limit on dietary cholesterol. Why? Because it's ineffective. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, and we actually need cholesterol to create testosterone. So we have this low cholesterol drive, right, for these last 50 years. What happens? We have a low testosterone epidemic going through our country. In addition to the obesity and diabetes, we have low T, right? Going crazy. Everybody's trying to supplement testosterone. Cholesterol makes hormones, so we need it. And I'm sure that the saturated fat limits will be coming out very soon too, because it's just, there's nothing to back it up. You say, well, why would the HEA still, even though they're wrong initially, why would they still be pushing, saying bad things about coconut oil, saying watch your saturated fat? Not sure, but the thing is, back in the 50s, American Heart Association, the AHA, there wasn't much to them. It was a bunch of scientists kind of sitting in a dark room somewhere, not having no effect, no voice. They were studying some stuff. They're trying to do good work, I'm sure, but nobody was hearing them. They didn't have any funding. Okay, and then Procter & Gamble comes along, who coincidentally makes Crisco. Had been making it since the early 20th century. Started off being they thought about marketing as a soap, but they said, hey, let's tell people to cook with it. Why not? Sounds like a good idea. Have people cooking with Crisco. Makers of Crisco dropped several $1 million into the American Heart Association in the early 60s. And since then, we've had a great deal of information coming out of the American Heart Association. Several chapters opened up after that, and it became quite a large voice telling us about the benefits of polyunsaturated fats. So there may be a correlation there. I don't know. But, we'll see. I think they might change their tune eventually, because the science, once again, is just showing us just the opposite. Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them below. There's a lot of info. I kind of went a little long today, but it's an important subject for me. If you know someone that can benefit from this, please tag them in the comments. And if you need any help with your diet, weight loss, general, guidelines just to get you in better shape, okay? Please reach out to me. Give me a call or post here. We'll get on the phone, and I'll be happy to help you out. Talk to you later.